Track Record with your hosts Mike Shea and Robert Yetter. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.
Good day, everyone. It's another episode of Track Record, episode 20. We're going to do it right. We've got another themed episode for you all. Today, we're going to be doing best, or what we think is the epitome of the 80s. I think we have interesting picks.
Oh,
today.
Our picks were drastically different. Drastically.
I mean, there's that, but I mean, our picks are also, I don't think, would be usual picks that, if you ask anybody on the street, like, what do you think was the epitome of an 80s album? I don't know. They choose, like, Tears for Fears or something, Something like quintessentially 80s sounding.
No, the two we picked aren't that.
Yeah.
But I think we picked two albums that are definitely kind of give an idea of what the state of, I guess, rock was in the 80s, what it was slowly becoming, how it was starting to evolve, because I think both of the ones we have today were very different for their time.
Yeah, well, we had Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz, and we had The Cure, Disintegration, and so those are kind of, Disintegration came out in 89, and Blizzard of Oz came out in 80, so we have, literally, two ends of the 80s that we're going to be talking about today. And I think that was something that we didn't plan. We're just actually that good.
We're just pros, man. We're pros.
So we'll get, a nice take on the 80s. Something that you probably don't expect.
No, this is going to be different, but this is going to be a lot of fun.
Mike, what are you drinking?
I'm keeping it simple tonight. I'm just drinking a Blue Moon.
Blue Moon? Beautiful.
Drinking a Blue Moon. Yeah, I went out to dinner with my family earlier, had some bourbon at the restaurant, so I'm keeping it simple now that I'm home.
There you go.
How about you, man?
Speaking of bourbon, I've got a Jim Beam Red Stag, some good old black cherry bourbon whiskey.
Aw, yeah.
And just chasing with a monster.
Jim Beam is good bourbon for shooting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't honestly had whiskey in just the longest time. And it just struck me. Of course, the black cherry struck me, but...
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I think Jim Beam is perfect for shooting. I think Old Crow is what you use when you're making a mixed drink. And,
Maker's
Tennessee,
Mark.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff.
Maker's Mark is for sipping.
Bullet, I think, is good for drinking straight.
I've seen that around.
I like Bullet bourbon a lot. It's pricier. It's a pricier bourbon, but it's a good bourbon.
Comes in a cool looking bottle.
It does. I like it a
Ken
lot.
Pie.
Aha! For those who are at home who can't see what we're doing, we just took shots. So
that's good stuff. Okay. Mike, I believe you're going first today, buddy.
I am going first today. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the album Disintegration by The Cure. Now, The Cure is a band that I'm very familiar with. That's a name that dances around in the radio world all the time. But it's a band that I've also never taken the time to, like, sit down and really delve into, which is a shame because I like gothic rock a lot. And so The Cure, and since The Cure is kind of like, the premier gothic rock band, I'm a little ashamed of myself that I've never taken more of a foray into their catalog. So a little bit of background on the album. It was released, as Robert said earlier, in May of 1989, the year I was born. It's the eighth album by the band. It was released on Fiction Records, and it was produced by David M. Allen and Robert Smith. Robert Smith, of course, the frontman of The Cure. I think Robert has produced all their albums, actually. I could be wrong, but I think that's true. No, Robert Smith is a very... Well, and I'll just start off right away. I mean, this album, like a lot of The Cure's music, is a foray into the mind of Robert Smith, who is just a top-notch lyricist and composer. He does the vocals, the guitars, the keyboards. On this album, he even does some bass. He plays a 6-string bass on one of the songs. And also help produce it as well. And right out the gate with the opening track playing song, you're just in Robert Smith's world, and you are a guest in his home, and he is here to offer you a drink and a comfy chair, and you're just going to kick back and get lost in the pictures that he is painting with his music. One song on the album really jumped out to me, and Robert probably knows what song that is, and it's called Pictures of You. This is a song that Robert covered with one of his past projects, Boogeyman's Tears. Go check that out on the Eventide Entertainment store. It's a great song. I like his cover of it, and I like this version of it as well. It's a really good song. It's one of the longer songs on the album. A lot of the songs on the album hover between 5 and 7 minutes. This one's 7.5. One of them, The Same Deep Water as You, goes up to 9, almost 9.5. So, Pictures of You has such a great extended introduction that leads you into this kind of it's a sad song. I mean, it's kind of a heartbreaking song. And I think we've all at some point in our life had someone that we just kind of keep looking at their pictures and missing them, being reminded of them all at once. We've all gone through that. The Cure, I like to think, is one of the bands who was kind of influential in the genre of emo music without being pretentious. They were emo in a way that was still artistic and wholesome and enjoyable to listen to, as opposed to cut my wrists and black my eyes, that kind of crap. I'm allowed to make fun of them. They're from Ohio, so it's okay. So they're actually from Dayton, Ohio, so I'm allowed to make fun of them because their heart is in Ohio. Yes, they are. They're from Dayton, Ohio, and their heart is in Ohio. So Ohio is for lovers. I could make jokes all fucking day. Anyway, all just from the beginning to end, Robert Smith's lyrics just take you on a trip, man, throughout this whole album. I was so just thrilled when I got to the end of it. I wasn't thrilled that it was over, but I was thrilled that I got to have that experience. That's how much I enjoyed the music on this album. It's kind of like when you watch a really good movie and you get to the end and you're just like, holy shit, I am so glad I saw this movie. And now you just can't wait to watch it again. And I can't wait to listen to this album again as well. I got some car trips coming up soon. I got a couple of out-of-town shows and some stuff I got going on. So this will be a good one for the road. I actually got to the app that I listened to a lot of the music on actually had was the deluxe edition. So it also had the 20-track Rarities Disc 2 from the 2010 re-release, which I didn't know at first, and after I got through listening to Homesick and Untitled, and it kept going, and I was like, oh man, there's more to this. And then I didn't even realize until like partway through, I'm like, why are all of these suddenly like low quality and instrumental? And it's because it's all demos and they're all instrumentals from like stuff that he did at band rehearsals or like in his home studio. And I got so lost in it, I didn't even realize I was on like a bunch of B-sides and bonus tracks until I got to like the second or third one. This was just a great experience. It's definitely got the sound of the 80s back when, people were still recording on, tapes. It's got that little bit of that fuzz. Like a lot of 80s music and before has a little bit of fuzz in the sound. And I don't mean like static, But like Robert, you probably know what I'm talking about. Just
I do.
That classic music fuzz, like you'd hear if you played a vinyl or a cassette tape. And it was nice. It was nice to have that little fuzz in the ears as I was listening to the music, because I really did feel like, boom, I was back, in the 80s. And I say that like I lived in the 80s. I was born in 89, but still, you get what I mean. This was and when I was reading up on some of the backstory for this album, you can really see, you really get a second opinion, a refreshing idea of what Robert Smith was going through. There was he was having a lot of problems. He had he's fallen off the wagon. He had been off of drugs for a while and kind of fell back into them during the production of this album. Mm-hmm. And you can hear a lot of that in what he was going through in a lot of the lyrics. So if I had to pick a favorite song off of here other than Pictures of You, honestly, Plain Song, the first track on the album, I really loved. It got me just like, it really just got into my brain and just put me in that, almost like in that trance where you're just like, oh, here we go. Yeah. It's like, It's like when you're having really good sex and you just close your eyes and just live in the moment. It's kind of how I felt.
That's right.
I've never done hallucinogenics, but this album kind of made me feel like I was doing hallucinogenics, like I was getting a contact high through the music. This album also, like from a commercial standpoint, this album did really well. It peaked at number 12 on the U.S. Billboard 200. Peaked at number 3 on both the UK and French album charts. Surprisingly, pictures of the 4 singles they released, Lullaby, Fascination Street, Love Song, and Pictures of You, Pictures of You actually had the lowest placement chart-wise. Lullaby peaked at number 5 in the UK, whereas Pictures of You peaked at only 24. But which is surprising to me, because Pictures of You seems like one of the more well-known songs. But regardless, this album went double gold in France, gold in Germany, Switzerland, and the UK, platinum in the US and Spain. This thing was a monster when it came out. And it came out halfway through the last year of the 80s. So if you're looking at kind of a good way to start closing out the 80s, this was a good way to do it. This sucker was a monster when it came out, and it just kind of propelled forward through the rest of the year, because they dropped those singles all the way through March. Pictures of You was the last single to drop, and it came out in March of 1990. So this thing plowed through all of 89 and into early 1990. So I can't really say much more about this album. I'm just going to keep, stroking the ego more and more. This is a great experience to listen to. But I also kind of feel glad that I waited till I was at this point in my life to really delve into The Cure, because when I was first working in radio, I was such a douchebag, like one of those douchey metal fans where, like, if it wasn't heavy, I didn't like it. We all go through that phase. So I'm kind of glad I waited till this point in my life to really delve into The Cure, because now I can actually appreciate it for what it is and for everything that went into it. So, long story short, this was a fantastic album to listen to, and I have no choice, man. I have to give this sucker a 4 out of 4 purple stars, man.
Beautiful.
Quick piece of trivia, though. There's an episode of South Park, and I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but in South Park, Kyle called it the best album ever.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's the episode where, because there's an episode with where they have Robert Smith, like not him as the voice, but as a character.
Yeah.
Where they're fighting mecha robot Barbara Streisand or whatever. I think it's that one. I think that's the episode they're talking about. But yeah, this thing's been on like every list. Everything from 500 greatest albums of all time, 1001 albums you must hear before you die, 10 best albums of the 80s. This thing's a monster, and rightfully so. This was absolutely fantastic. So, I got nothing bad to say. So, Robert, you want to add to it?
No, I love The Cure, man. I think that they had that kind of... They had some of the 80s aesthetic, definitely, but not fully. We were talking earlier about the quintessential 80s sound. They delved into that a little bit. Definitely, with how they produce the drums and stuff like that. You can always tell sometimes that it's an 80s track by how the drums are produced. But I loved what you said about the kind of a classy type of emo, and you're totally right. I think Robert Smith is a master of lyricism, and I love all of his music, and I'm glad that you got to have a great experience.
Yeah, man, this was awesome.
Very good.
I'm a little scared of what you got to say about mine, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we hear what Robert has to say about the album I gave him, we're gonna take a quick break, listen to me talk about some stuff, and then we'll come back and we'll listen to Robert talk about the album. So stick around, everybody.
There's a reason they call them lazy Sundays. There's nothing better than sitting around and enjoying the comforts of a good book. But what book should that be? Well, every Sunday, Eventide brings you The Bookseller, hosted by Jessica Gillen. Each week, Jessica breaks down a different book and tells you everything you need to know before cracking it open and getting lost in a whole new world. Tune in every Sunday for The Bookseller with Jessica Gillen, brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.
There's nothing quite as satisfying as a good conversation with intelligent company.
Join comedian Don Smith every week as he sits down and talks with comedians, actors, filmmakers, writers, and everyday schmoes. It's The Life with Don Smith, Wednesdays at noon on 106.9 FM, and now available on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed every Friday on Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes. Welcome back to Track Record. I just got done stroking off Disintegration by The Cure. Amazing. 4 out of 4 Purple Star, epitome of the 80s album. And now that we've taken a break and listened to me talk about some crap and had some more drinks, it's time for Robert to fire up the vocal cords and let us know what he thought of the album I gave him for this week.
When you think of heavy metal, the first thing that comes to mind is probably Black Sabbath, but as a part of Black Sabbath, you have Ozzy Osbourne, who is widely considered as the godfather of heavy metal. This week, I listened to Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne, which was the first, what was a solo album of many solo albums to come. And I say that with kind of a grain of salt because the band was not expecting it to be an Ozzy Osbourne solo album. They thought they were in a band called Blizzard of Oz. And then all of a sudden, the album comes out and it's Ozzy Osbourne in big old letters. So there's a good bit of controversy surrounding this album, especially when it comes to writing credits and stuff like that. But it's the first of 11 albums that Ozzy has put out. The first 7 of which have all gone platinum, and that's an amazing statistic to think about. I believe platinum in the U.S. is 1 million copies sold.
Yes.
And to have 7 albums that go platinum, most legendary bands don't even have, 7 albums to begin with, but it's just astounding to me, the level of success that Ozzy has seen. Not to mention, I mean, that's 11 albums as, you know, Ozzy. There's, 6 or 7 Black Sabbath albums before he was kicked out.
Yeah, no kidding.
So the dude has just churned out music. And again, this came out in 1980, so it was kind of the beginning of the 80s era. And you know, I think that Ozzy really ushered in the 80s with style. Blizzard of Oz, this album has some serious balls with all the vocal styling, the attitude, the trippiness, and the heaviness of 70s heavy metal, but really just the sheer catchiness of the 80s. And, you know, despite all the controversy about who wrote what, I think that the album has exceptional lyricism and guitar and bass work. I think the lyricism and guitar work is definitely the strongest aspects, especially the guitar solos. And that guitar work is wholly credited to a gentleman named Randy Rhoads. Hands down, he is legendary on this. He passed away a couple years later in '82. But man, he left a mark. He was on the first 2 Ozzy albums as the lead guitarist. Now, the lyrics aren't all Ozzy's. You know, in reading up about the album, you know, a lot of the band members contributed to the lyrics. So I can't credit him fully with, you know, a lot of the masterful lyricism found on this record. I can credit him with his vocals, of course. And they are indeed masterful, and no one would expect less from the godfather of heavy metal. The weakest part of the album, for me, has to be the production. Blizzard of Oz really sounds like a collection of demo tracks. The instruments are offbeat and out of sync a lot, and the mix tends to emphasize the wrong things. And this is an aesthetic that looks to the past, to the 70s, rather than to the future of the cleaner productions that were becoming prominent in the 80s. And the songs don't have a full sound. It's really hard to explain for, you know, I could take, you know, like production details and try and explain it that way, but really the only thing I can say is that there's no brightness to the tone. It's like there's an EQ fader somewhere that somebody forgot to flick during the mastering. You know, it's flat in a sense, and it's strange to me that, you know, this is kind of a great example of a heavy metal album, and something that has sold, you know, over 4 million copies, 4 times platinum. But you know, with production aside, the songwriting and the performances are what drive this record completely. Another thing too is that the album is incredibly short. It's only 39 minutes, and you are definitely left wanting more. I mean, you have 39 minutes. That's I can make 2 songs that would cover 39 minutes, and it's just there's not enough music on this album. My favorite tracks, if I had to pick a couple, are Goodbye to Romance. This is kind of one of the softer ones, a ballad. And I know that Ozzy wrote this one, and so this gives you a really good idea of how good a writer Ozzy is, and he's pretty damn good. But my absolute favorite song from the record is called Revelation Mother Earth. Now this has kind of the strange production quality that I mentioned earlier. A lot of the instruments are out of time, and it's kind of a weird sound, but it somehow works, and it creates this really gothic. Really, it's a masterpiece. The piano and the synth are beautiful and they're dark, and then the end just explodes into this amazing solo, and it's the most different sounding song from the record, and I think that's why I like it the most. You know, it doesn't have the kind of the Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath. Okay, whiskey. All right, Black Sabbath / Ozzy Osbourne kind of, you know, the catchy riff with the distorted guitar and kind of, you know, his melodic singing with that. It follows a very different formula than is the usual for Ozzy. So I'm gonna give Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne 3 out of 4 purple stars. I like the gumption of it. I like its catchiness. I like the lyricism is probably the strongest aspect. The guitar solos, oh my god, so good. But man, this thing was produced in just, I don't know if they recorded this in like a day or something. I don't know, but it just doesn't have a professional sounding recording quality to it, and so that's why it gets 3 out of 4.
No, I think that's fair. You know, this is an album that is just the whole process behind the making of it is shrouded in controversy. You know, debates over who had writer's credit on what songs.
Right.
The fact that the band produced it themselves. I think they had a low production budget, which I think is why. Because at that point, everybody was like, "What do you mean we gotta record Ozzy without the rest of Sabbath?" What? Like, people were just kind of weirded out by that. Did you by any chance listen to, or did you for this listen to the 2002 reissue?
I am unsure of what version I listened to. All the songs that I listened to had remastered by them, which, I mean, you might as well just, the remastering was shit, so I don't know what that was.
I think that's part of the problem. In 2002, they did a reissue of the album where they had the current lineup for, they had some of the guys from Ozzy Osbourne's band at the time. It was the bass player Robert Trujillo, who now plays for Metallica, and the drummer Mike Borden redid the drums and the bass for it.
Right.
And people were like, "No, this is not good." And so when they did the box set in 2011, they put the original version back in because everybody just hated the reissue. I've never actually listened to the reissue version. I've only ever listened to the original version, so I honestly don't know if it sounds that much different. Maybe that's what you were hearing. I don't know.
It's possible.
I mean, if you think about it, you're taking an album that was made in 1980 and adding drum and bass tracks that are recorded in 2002. There's going to be a drastic difference, you figure.
Right. That just is a recipe for a mixing headache.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well just redo the whole damn album. Believe it or not, my favorite song on this album is Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, I didn't see, and that seems to be a fan favorite. They say that that's one of Rhodes' best solos is in that song. But I didn't like his vocal delivery on that. I didn't think his melody was it just sounded too gimmicky on that one.
I think the reason I like it so much is, one, because I'm a big fan of symphonic metal, and this has kind of a symphonic metal sound to it. But I love the electric organ intro.
I do like that. Yes.
And it's just a creepy fucking song, and so that's why I like that. But also, yeah, Revelation Mother Earth is a song that does not get talked about enough. It's a great song. Randy Rhoads will go down in history as one of the greatest heavy metal guitar players to ever live. There's no doubt about it. The man tickles the strings in a way that few have ever been able to come close to in the years since. Zakk Wylde is up there. Like, when he brought Zakk Wylde in to play with the band, it's like, okay, all right, yeah, he has a style and a sound that's similar to enough to Randy Rhoads that it was a good fit. He's had Gus G in his band for a while. Gus G's good, but nothing still beats what Randy did for Ozzy's band. Yeah, the stuff with the name of the band where they were called like the Blizzard of Oz and all that was so... I remember reading somewhere that like they were playing at like one of the festivals over in Europe, and like it didn't even say the Blizzard of Oz or like Ozzy Osbourne. It had like his name misspelled, and it just said like Osbourne's new band or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just nobody knew what to think of it, because it was like, what do you mean? What do you mean it's Ozzy without Black Sabbath? What the fuck? It was just nobody knew what to think yet.
Right.
Because this was kind of a new thing too. It was rare at the time for someone to front a band, especially to a level of success of Black Sabbath, and then go off and do their own thing. Why would you want to leave the? But there was the whole drama of him being kicked out, and
right.
At that point, I think Dio was in at that point. Dio sang with Sabbath. I like Roddy James Dio. He's a weird pick to sing with Black Sabbath. Anyway, but yeah, no, I like this album a lot, and I like the direction that it took metal and rock going forward in the 80s.
Definitely.
So, yeah, man. And yeah, this album alone went 4 times platinum.
Yep.
That is insane.
For 39 minutes.
For a 39-minute. And, to think about it, too, it's like you were saying, like, yeah, he's got, like, 8 platinum albums. Most bands are lucky to have one album chart, period.
Right.
Like, to even, like, hit, like, silver or whatever. To have 8 albums, most of which went multiple platinum, is just crazy.
I don't understand it. It's...
Well,
like, it's good music, but geez, that's.
Well, I guess for us, because we're so used to.
How does he remember all those lyrics?
Oh, Jesus Christ! I think that's literally like all he. Well, because they got in a lot of trouble for the song "Suicide Solution." There was the whole controversy with that, and I'll never forget what the lawyer who was suing him said, which was, well, I'm just shocked that Mr. Osbourne even knows what the lyrics mean, considering his minimal knowledge of the English language.
Like, oh, really?
Yeah, like, what a dick.
Jeez.
It's true, but still, like, you don't point out somebody's shortcomings like that. That's a dick move,
That's not a...
It's also not a legal defense.
We've also... We've determined as a society that that's not a valid argument.
Right. Didn't stop.
You don't attack the person.
Yeah, that's a what's it called? Which fallacy is that? That's the I used to teach a class on this crap. I've been at it for a month and I can't remember anymore. But
yeah, it's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy. I think it's just called attacking the character, or straw. Maybe straw. Is that straw man?
Is that what straw man is?
I don't remember. Right now, my friend Gil, who's my old boss, is screaming at me like, Mike, come on.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We should know, because we have plenty of examples of it in the current political
we do.
society.
Yeah, we do.
It's nothing but personal attacks.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sad face.
Hashtag no filter. So yeah.
Okay. Black Sabbath,
show, man.
The Cure, 80s.
This is a good show. This was a good
80s, baby.
This is a fun one to get, because usually what ends up happening with me is I'll listen to the one that you give me, and then I'll go listen to the one that I give you, because it's like,
Yeah.
while he's listening to it, I'm going to listen to it too. Oh yeah, I forgot how much I like this one. It's just, man, yeah. Because right now at work, I work in television. We've been airing those 30-minute infomercials for like the Time Life DVD collections, and the two that we're running right now are Best of the CMA Awards and Time Life the '60s. It's just all '60s music.
Okay.
And I'm sitting here waiting, like, when can we get to the? Because like we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm not the biggest fan of my musical taste. Kind of stops at the '70s.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here like, when are we getting to like the '70s and the '80s? Because I'm so sick and tired of hearing,
The Beatles.
the Beatles and Stones and the Bee Gees. Like, and this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Okay. I do like the Animals version of House of the Rising Sun, but it's if I want to hear "Just Call Me Angel," I'll go watch Deadpool because that's in the opening credits.
There you go. Yeah, the '60s is not a good time.
No, it got better. I mean, the '60s was okay, but
Well, I mean, you had war, hippies, acid.
the '70s itself, or the '60s itself as a decade, wasn't great. The music was okay, but the '70s is when shit got awesome.
It was all right. You had Santana tripping on mescaline, thinking his guitar is a snake.
I love Santana. Though.
Woodstock.
I love Carlos Santana.
Oh yeah.
That man. Oof. He played the national anthem at not last year but the year before the NBA Finals.
Really?
Yeah, it was nice.
He's still kicking around?
Still kicking around. Still, I don't know. Is he still putting out those albums where he collabs with a bunch of different pop singers?
I don't think so. I haven't heard of course I don't listen to the radio or pop music anymore, but some of it filters through to my land. But no, I haven't heard anything about Santana, and I haven't. You would be able to tell if it was a Santana.
Right.
You just all of a sudden, whoa, where'd that Latin come from?
It's like, why is Rob Thomas singing and then suddenly there's a Latin funk guitar solo? What is happening right now?
Man, I wonder how much money he made back in the early 2000s.
Oh, Christ. I remember when I took the SATs in high school, the reading portion of the test, one of the passages we had to read was all about Santana's career.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it was great. I aced the shit out of that passage. The rest of the test, but
Fun fact, I got a 29 on my ACT.
I never took the ACT. My high school didn't, offer anything with it. They were strictly, SAT.
I never took the SAT.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's ironic because my teaching job that I just quit was all about teaching the ACT, how to do well on the ACT. That's weird.
Yeah.
Life's
So if you get a 29, I think that's
29's good. 29 will get you
percentile or some shit.
Yeah, that'll get you into just about anywhere. It won't get you a free ride, but you'll pretty much get into just about any school.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, now that we've
dealing with the smarty pants right here, man.
Completely fucking derailed into the education system.
Oh, it happens. We've been good lately. It's time for a little.
These are the episodes. These theme episodes are the ones that are good for a little more conversation, I think.
I think so.
So next week is the last week of February, which means we've got another episode, different episode style coming at you guys. Robert, why don't you tell them what we're doing what we have planned for next week?
Yeah, so next week we're going to be doing an episode that is purely based on what our fans want us to review. So what we need you all to do is to go to our Twitter. That's at TrackRecordEE, at TrackRecordEE, and use the hashtag Gary Busey Loves Potato Salad, and tweet us an album that you would like for us to review. It can be something that you know that we will absolutely be disgusted by, or something that we may not have heard of, something that we may love, something classic that you just want to hear our thoughts on, go do that. We would love to get as many entries as possible. Also, I mean, if yours doesn't get chosen for next week's episode, we can always use yours for the next month. We're going to try and make this a monthly thing. So now you all know what our new monthly track record schedule is pretty much like. First week of the month, we're going to be doing a best of previous month. We're going to choose 2 new releases, and we're going to dote upon them. Second week, we're going to shit on someone's dreams. Third week, we're going to do a theme, just like this week. And then the fourth week, we want to do a fan-picked album review. And if there is perhaps a 5th Wednesday of the month, we're going to record the sounds of jerking each other off. And then...
He went off script at the end there, folks.
And so there you have it. So please tweet us an album. I personally want it to be something silly, something that we can shit on, because I like doing that. You know.
Something that'll just really just make us laugh. I don't mean like a comedy laugh, like holy shit, what did we just listen to laugh.
Yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I mean too, if you just want us to listen to something that you like and you want to see our thoughts on it, and then maybe shit on your dreams, and then we can do that. I mean, I'm down to, discover new music. I know Mike is down.
I'm always down for new music. So yeah, tweet us, hashtag Gary Busey loves potato salad.
That's right.
I mean, like, there's no way it'll get confused for something else. That's a pretty fucking unique hashtag.
We'll find it.
So do that, and like I said, if we don't pick yours for next week, fear not. We'll keep it on standby for another week. We'll just compile a list, and then that way we've got them for a whole shitload going forward. But yeah, tweet at us. Always tweet at us. We love to hear from you guys. And Robert, with that being said, I think we have a show, sir.
Nobody's allowed to pick the Beatles.
Yeah, no Beatles. If you pick the Beatles, we're going to ignore it.
Yep.
That's kind of our one rule with this show is no Beatles.
That's correct.
Because neither of us are fans of the Beatles, and all we're going to do is piss off anybody who is a fan of the Beatles. So, that's just, yeah.
Okay.
Let's not.
I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, it's worth because someone would. Somebody would. Well, I understand why you guys need to review the White Album. It's the greatest album ever released.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I could literally spend a whole show talking about why the White Album is a piece of shit. So maybe we could do that one day.
That'll be our farewell episode if we ever decide to be done. Our final episode.
When that'll be episode 20. This one, y'all. What's 20 weeks of flavor.
Aw, yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. Had a lot of fun with this one. Make sure you tweet at us for next week. We're going to have a lot of fun picking apart the albums you guys send us. Make sure you, if you're listening to us on your iPhone, on your podcast app, make sure on your app or on iTunes you go and give us 5 stars and write us a review. Believe it or not, that actually helps us out a lot if you do that. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you click like and subscribe and leave us a comment that's positive. That does a lot for us as well. And if you're on Spreaker, do whatever you got to do. Same thing. Hit subscribe, leave us a nice comment. That helps us out a lot. If you're a fan of the show, it takes you 30 seconds, and it helps us out a lot more than you think. So make sure you guys do that. So now that I've begged you and begged you and begged you, I'm just gonna ramble until it stops recording. Just gonna talk and just mutter and mumble and whisper. Can you hear me?